Have you ever tried to speak English but the words just disappear? You know, some words, you understand what people say, but when you try to talk, nothing comes out. Your mind goes blank and you feel frustrated. If this happens to you, it's not your fault. Most people learn English the wrong way, and maybe you're making the same mistake without even knowing it. And the longer you keep doing it this way, the harder it gets to speak. But don't worry, today I'll show you why speaking English feels so hard and what you can do to fix it right now. This is not a magic trick, and it's not just another boring tip. It's a simple and real way to help you finally speak English with confidence. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and stay with me until the end, because I'm going to reveal the Learn English secrets that might be the key to finally helping you speak English easily. So, let's go. Practice is the secret to speaking English like a native. Has it ever happened that you were trying to speak English and in the crucial moment the words just disappeared? You know exactly what you want to say, but when it's time to open your mouth, nothing comes out. It's like your brain freezes, right? It happens to everyone, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, okay? I know exactly how that feels because I've been through it myself. You understand when someone speaks English, but when it's your turn to speak, it feels like your brain goes into panic mode. This is totally normal when you're learning a new language. Don't freak out, I'm going to tell you a secret now. The big trick to improving your English, especially your speaking, isn't just about studying grammar or listening to English all the time. That might help a bit, but it won't make you speak fluently. The real magic happens when you start speaking for real, my friend. That's right, speaking, and I know you might be scared of making mistakes, but I'll tell you something, mistakes are part of the process. I guarantee you don't need to worry about that. Now, pay attention. Practice is what's going to transform your English in an incredible way. And I know you might be thinking, oh, but I'm afraid of making mistakes. What will people think of me? And I'll respond, you're not alone. Everyone goes through this, okay? I had those fears in the beginning too, but I'll give you a piece of advice. Practice. Speaking is the best way to learn. Every time you try, it gets easier, and little by little, the fear will fade and your confidence will grow. There's no secret here, just speak. Think of it like this. Imagine you want to learn to ride a bike. In the beginning, you fall a lot, right? But with every attempt, you get better at it. And with English, it's the same story. The more you speak, the easier it gets. So, if you're frustrated because you can't speak English the way you'd like, maybe the problem is how you're learning. That's right, just studying won't get you anywhere, my friend. You need to practice. One thing you can be sure of, the more you speak, the more you learn. So, if you're really committed to improving, the secret is speak, speak, and speak more. Practice will take you far, and I'm here to help you in this process. Practice will get you there, and I'm going to show you a technique that will help you improve in a way that will surprise you. The imitation technique, the secret to improving your speaking. Now, I'm going to share a secret that will revolutionize your English, and believe me, it's way simpler than you think. The trick to improving your speaking is imitating. Don't worry, I'm not telling you to repeat like a parrot. I'm talking about real imitation in a way that will make a huge difference in your learning. When we talk about imitation, it's not just repeating words like you're recording. The idea here is to understand how people speak and use that to learn how to speak naturally without constantly thinking about grammar rules. You know, that super casual conversation from someone who seems like they've been speaking English for years, smoothly and naturally. That's exactly what you're going to be able to do. Imitating is more than just copying the words. When you imitate, you're absorbing more than just the words themselves. You're picking up on the structure of sentences, expressions, rhythm, intonation, all of that. It's like you're learning to speak in a more spontaneous way without stressing over grammar because you're going to internalize English in a natural way. This is going to help you sound more fluent, comfortable, and even more confident when you speak. And my friend, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. It's like when we try to learn a new song. The first time we might mess up the lyrics or sing off beat. But over time, we get the hang of it and the song starts to feel more natural, right? It's the same with imitation. Every time you imitate, you'll get more familiar with the sound and way of speaking, and this will help you gain fluency. So, imitating is one of the most powerful tools you have to improve your speaking. And the best part is that you don't need to memorize those complicated grammar rules because the learning process will be more intuitive and natural. That makes all the difference, and I'm sure that if you start practicing this technique, you'll see how much you can progress. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how the imitation technique works in practice, and you'll see how this tool will be a game changer in your learning. How imitation works. Now that you know that imitation could be the key to improving your speaking, let's see how this actually works in practice. And trust me, it's simpler than you think. No need to be scared or think it's going to be some big challenge. Once you start understanding how imitation works, you'll realize it becomes super natural, like breathing, you know. Imitating isn't just repeating words like a parrot, okay? The real trick is absorbing the person's speaking style and doing it in a way that sounds natural to you. Now, imagine you're watching a video or a series in English and the character says something like, "I'm going to the store to buy some food." Instead of just saying those words, you'll tweak it a little to express yourself in your own way. For example, you could say, "I'm heading to the shop to get some groceries." How cool is that? You just expressed the same idea but in your own way. The best part is that over time, you'll understand how sentences work without worrying about memorizing grammar rules or being afraid to make mistakes. This is pure freedom. When you imitate like this, you start picking up the natural way English is spoken, and you'll realize you don't need to force anything. As you keep imitating, your brain will internalize the rhythm, flow, and structure of sentences, and eventually, you'll be speaking without even thinking. It feels like magic, but it's all about practice. Here's the thing, imitation works like a little mental muscle. At first, it might seem a bit difficult, like lifting a really heavy weight. But over time, you get stronger, more comfortable, and before you know it, you'll be imitating in a supernatural way. No rush, no complications, just flowing. It's not about speaking perfectly from the start, it's about starting to think like native speakers think and speak. And that's all you need to get sharper and sharper. Now, you know what's even more interesting? When you start using this method, you won't have to worry about memorizing sentences anymore. Instead of just memorizing something you saw in a book or learned in a course, you begin to notice the rhythm of the language and how sentences are naturally constructed. This will make you communicate with more confidence because you'll know that you don't have to be perfect all the time. You're just being yourself, speaking English your way. The secret is to have fun with the process. When you hear a sentence like, "I'm going to the store," instead of thinking you need to use the exact same words every time, You'll start thinking of other ways to express the same idea. This will make your speech way more varied and interesting. And then what happens? You start understanding how English works in real life, and soon enough you'll be expressing yourself in a much smoother and more natural way. And the best part is that this happens almost without you even realizing. Oh, and don't think imitation has to be rigid. Actually, it needs to be free and without pressure. When you try to be perfect all the time, you get blocked and it becomes harder. But when you imitate, play with words, and let your creativity flow, things come much easier. It's like creating your own way of speaking English. And believe me, this will get you much farther than any formula you learned at school or on the internet. So, how about putting all this into practice? To help even more in the next step, I'll give you a really practical example of how to use imitation to improve your speaking. Let's do this. Don't just sit there, it's time to dive into this practice. Practical imitation example. Alright, time to roll up those sleeves and get to work, my friend. Let's see how this imitation technique works in the real world. I'm going to give you an example of how you can apply this in your daily life in a supernatural way. Imagine you heard someone say, "She's going to the park to play with her dog." It's a simple sentence, right? Now, instead of just repeating the same sentence, how about giving it your own twist? You could say something like, "She's heading to the park to walk her dog." Notice the difference? The idea is the same, but you changed up the words, and believe me, that makes all the difference. We're not just repeating from memory, we're personalizing the speech to make it more fluid and you. Besides learning new words and expressions, you'll expand your vocabulary without even noticing. By changing words around, you start to understand how sentences work in a more natural way. And the best part, it's way more fun to learn this way because you're not stuck in a rigid formula. You're creating something from what you already know, and that gives you a huge sense of accomplishment, doesn't it? Now, take a second and think of a simple sentence you heard today. Try giving it your personal touch, change a few words, add some new ones. You'll see how it feels way more natural and without that fear of messing up. It'll feel like a real conversation, and that's what's going to make your English flow easier. To help you fix this, go ahead and drop your version of the sentence in the comments. I want to see your take, and let's learn from each other. Let's practice together, step by step. Variations of the technique. Start simple and then go deeper. Now that you're starting to get the trick of imitation and how it can improve your speaking, it's time to take the next step. I know you might be wondering, okay, but how do I start? Where do I begin? Don't worry, I've got you covered. The first thing you need to know is that there's no secret in starting small. The big trick here is taking the first step simply and lightly. You don't have to try super complex sentences right away. That might even make you feel nervous and unmotivated. What I want you to do is start slow, feel comfortable, and then raise the level as it gets easier. First, how about starting with short and direct sentences? It could be something basic like, "I like pizza," or "I'm tired today." These sentences are short, simple, and you've probably heard them many times in movies, shows, or even in everyday conversations. Now, the trick is to imitate these sentences, but with your personal touch. Swap a word here, change one there, and start feeling the rhythm of the speech. For example, instead of "I like pizza," you could say, "I love pizza," or even "Pizza is awesome." Seems simple, right? But that's how you start picking up the flow of the language, and most importantly, you'll gain confidence in your English. As you get more comfortable and short sentences are flowing well, that's when it's time to step it up. Try imitating longer sentences. It could be something like, "I'm going to the store to buy some food." This will require a bit more effort, but this is how you'll learn to build longer sentences and understand how they work naturally. And when you're nailing those longer sentences, why not challenge yourself to go beyond and try to imitate entire paragraphs? It might feel tough at first, but I promise it'll get easier with practice. By trying to imitate entire paragraphs, you start to understand the flow of ideas and how language connects, and this will help you sound a lot more natural when speaking. The secret is not to rush. Remember, imitation is a process. There's no point in trying to skip steps or attempt difficult sentences right off the bat. Start with what you can manage and gradually raise the level as you feel more comfortable. The key here is consistency and patience. You'll see that over time, your English will feel lighter and more fluid, and everything will make more sense. I'm sure that when you look back and see how much you've progressed, you'll be amazed at how quickly your English has improved. And the best part is, it'll be a natural process without that pressure of having to be perfect all the time. So, catch the rhythm, do your imitation, and watch how English starts flowing in a super organic way. The approach from easy to hard. Here's a tip that's going to change the way you learn English. Start with the easy stuff and slowly raise the bar to the hard stuff. It's like working out at the gym, you know? You don't go for the heaviest weights on the first day because what will happen is you'll hurt yourself. The same logic applies to English. Start slow, no rush, and before you know it, you'll be nailing more complex sentences. First, dive into short sentences like we've talked about. Something simple like, I like pizza, or I live in Brazil. That's it. Don't worry if the sentence feels basic because you're already training your brain to think in English. And trust me, that's more than enough to get started. Then, as you build confidence, move on to slightly longer sentences like, I went to the park yesterday and met some friends. Now you're starting to form bigger thoughts, and that's going to give you a fantastic sense of fluency. And here's the secret. When you start with the simple stuff and gradually move up, you don't even notice how much English you're mastering. Each day, a new sentence. And before you know it, you'll be able to understand and even take part in entire conversations. It's not magic, the key is to raise the level bit by bit. The benefits of imitation. Now that we've talked about how imitation works, let me tell you why it's so powerful. You know that saying, we learn by example. In English, imitation works exactly like that. When you start imitating, you're learning automatically without even realizing it. It's like when you listen to a song over and over, you don't need to think about the lyrics, they just get stuck in your head. That's exactly what will happen with English. Imitating isn't just repeating words like we've said before, it's also about absorbing the way people speak. You'll start picking up on those expressions natives use like what's up, how's it going, and even the way sentences are structured. These expressions aren't in grammar books, but they make all the difference when it comes to speaking naturally. Plus, when you imitate, you're learning without rushing. It's not about memorizing rules, formulas, or endless verb tenses. With imitation, you learn in an intuitive way. You know when you start to understand something so naturally that you don't even realize how you learned it. That's exactly how it works. You'll start to understand how to form sentences correctly, how to choose the right word at the right moment, and even how to use the right tone for each situation. And the best part, you don't have to memorize everything. Your brain will absorb these phrases and ways of speaking because you're practicing in a way that's real and connected to what really matters, communicating. This will make you lose that fear of speaking and gain confidence. Every time you imitate a sentence, you'll understand English better, and before you know it, you'll be speaking fluently, as if you'd learned the language since childhood. how imitation helps improve your pronunciation. By now, you probably realize that imitation is one of the best ways to improve your speaking, right? But aside from making your speech more fluent, there's another awesome trick you can use: improving your pronunciation. And you know what? You don't need to spend hours in formal classes or buy that boring phonetics course. Let me explain how imitation can do all of this for you in a simple and practical way. Think about it: you're watching a video or movie in English and suddenly a character says something like, "Can you pass me the salt?" You hear it and at first you might think, "Okay, I know the words, but my pronunciation doesn't sound like theirs." And then you start wondering, am I the only one with this problem? No, my friend, this happens to everyone. But the good news is that you can improve it now, practically and without stress. Here's the trick: instead of just repeating the phrase as it is, start imitating. And I'm not just talking about repeating the words, but paying attention to how the person says it, the rhythm, the intonation, and even the pauses they make. When you do this, you're practicing how a native speaker talks. There's no secret, and you don't need complicated rules. You'll just feel your tongue getting used to making the sounds correctly, and your pronunciation will improve naturally. Let's take a more practical example: the famous little word three. For anyone learning English, it can be a nightmare because, let's be honest, the th sound is not easy. But check this out: if you hear a native saying three and really try to imitate how they say it, you'll notice it's not just one sound, it's almost like they're gliding through the word. And when you practice this way, you won't even have to think about the rules of how to make the sound. Your body starts getting used to the right way of pronouncing it. Over time, you'll simply feel how to say these words correctly without memorizing anything. Now, if you're still thinking, okay, but what if I make a mistake? What if my pronunciation isn't perfect? Relax, my friend, that's totally normal. Imitation isn't about being perfect all the time. It's about progress, about making little adjustments, and before you know it, you'll be speaking way more naturally. And you know what's the coolest part of all this? You don't need a teacher or tough rules to do this. You can be watching your favorite movie, listening to a song, or even watching a video here on YouTube. All of that can be a training ground for your pronunciation. The more you listen and try to imitate, the more your brain will absorb how words actually sound in English. This will make a huge difference in your daily life. So next time you hear a phrase and think, "I can't speak like that," instead of getting frustrated, just imitate. Listen carefully, repeat, have fun, and watch how your speech starts to change little by little without having to memorize a bunch of rules. The moral of the story: imitation is your new best friend for improving your pronunciation. No stress, no rush, just practice and patience. Do this every day and you'll see how your confidence skyrockets and your fear of making mistakes disappears fast. Now, if you still have doubts, go ahead and try it, because nothing's more fun than speaking with confidence. Oh, and since you're here, tell me in the comments, what's the last word in English you tried to imitate? I'd love to hear how you're doing with this process. Let's swap some tips. Communication should be the priority. Now, here comes the most important part: focusing on communication. I know it's tempting to fix every little grammar mistake, but let me tell you a secret: it's not going to get you as far as you think. The most important thing when you're learning English is the ability to speak and express yourself, even if you make a mistake now and then. And believe me, native speakers make mistakes too. Seriously, no one speaks perfect English all the time. So what you need to do is stop worrying so much about grammar, because what's really going to help you is speaking as much as possible. Here's the thing, the more you speak, the more you start to understand how the language works. You begin to feel the expressions, understand the differences in tone, and get better at communicating. It's not about memorizing all the rules, but using the language in an intuitive way, just like the natives do. This will make you feel more comfortable and confident when speaking. Picture this, you're in a conversation with a native speaker, and even if you mess up a verb or word, the important thing is that you're understanding each other. And that's going to help you get better and better. Because no matter how hard you try, there will be days when you make mistakes, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. The secret is to enjoy every moment of communication, whether it's simple sentences or more complex conversations. So forget about that fear of making mistakes. Instead, focus on what really matters, expressing yourself. There will come a time when grammar will just pop up on your radar without you even realizing it. But for now, the focus is on speaking, communicating, and having fun with the process. The more you use English in your daily life, the more natural it will become. And trust me, this will take you much further than memorizing rules. Now, we're almost at the end, but before we continue, I'm sure this content helped you and is so good that it deserves at least a like, right? So if you liked it and felt like you learned something here, hit that like button to help us keep bringing amazing tips to you. How imitation helps overcome the fear of speaking. Have you ever been afraid to speak English in front of other people? I totally get it. That nervous feeling, the racing heart, and your mind going blank on everything you know. But let me tell you, it doesn't have to be like that. The good news is that imitation can really help you overcome that fear once and for all. When you start imitating, you're not just repeating words or sentences, you're practicing self-confidence. What happens is, as you get used to hearing and imitating the way natives speak, you'll start feeling more comfortable with the language. This will give you the confidence to open your mouth and speak, even when the fear shows up. And the more you practice, the less afraid you'll be of making mistakes. Why? Because you'll realize that making mistakes is normal, and what matters is that you're communicating. Imitating is also great for getting used to the sounds of the language. Every language has its own quirks, right? Like the intonation, rhythm, and even the sounds of words. In English, for example, there are sounds that don't exist in Portuguese and can be tough to pronounce at first. When you imitate natives, you're practicing those sounds in a natural way without forcing them. Regular practice will make your brain get used to those sounds, and soon enough, your pronunciation will be closer to a native speaker. Now, think about it. You won't feel that nervousness about making mistakes anymore because you'll have practiced enough to be super confident. Before you know it, you'll be talking in English with ease without thinking about every word, without that fear of being judged. The secret is to practice and allow yourself to make mistakes. Imitation will give you that little push. And on top of that, imitation will make you sound more natural when speaking. Remember those expressions we talked about, the words we use every day, the little ways we speak. It'll make you sound more laid back and less formal, and that helps a lot when talking to others. So if the fear of speaking is still getting to you, don't worry. By continuing to practice imitation, your fear will fade and confidence and fluency will take its place. You'll see, in no time, you'll be rocking your English, speaking with incredible naturalness. Conclusion. So what do you think of today's tips? I'm sure that if you put them into practice, your English will take off really quickly. Now, before you run off and start impressing everyone with your speaking skills, I'm going to ask one thing. If you liked the video and think these tips will help you improve your English, give us a like below. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming videos, where I'll reveal more Learn English secrets that will make a big difference in your learning. And if you made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sticking with me until the end. Feel free to leave a comment telling me what you think about the imitation technique, if you already use it, or if you have any other technique you use to improve your English speaking. Let's share tips with other students here in the comments. I love hearing what you think, and it helps me bring even more awesome content. Keep practicing and keep discovering the Learn English secrets by clicking on this video or this playlist right here. See you in the next video.